Are you looking for a rule system that supports a wide variety of genres and types of games, that's story-driven, and has a unique mechanic that allows fantastic and epic abilities early on in game? Then stick around for our review of Monte Cook's Cipher system. We reached out to Monte Cook and they kindly sent us a copy of their Cypher System Rulebook to review. Okay, let's dive in. First with the format of the book. It's a well-designed book. It's easy to read and navigate. Each section of the book has its own accent color. Additionally, each page at the top lists the chapter title, which I think makes navigating this book very easy. There's a sidebar on most pages that provides some good extra info, as well as like what page things that were mentioned in the body text are located on. I'm torn on this format though, because that's where my eye goes first, and I actually found it a little bit harder to find the headings because that sidebar was there. I like the artwork in the book. There's a nice diversity of settings, genre, and depictions of various characters. At 450 pages, this is a beefy rule book, but not that much when you realize this is it. This is what the players and the GM needs to run something in the system. And while $70 might seem a little high price for a rule book, it's not actually that much when you remember that this is it. For example, the Pathfinder 2 Remastered books are $60 each. The D&D ones are like $50 to $60. And you need one for like the players, one for the GM, plus Monster Core rules. Now, this is just a system rulebook. There is no setting, but there are rules for different genres of games. It does feel like this will support fantasy or sci-fi games the best, but you can play like superhero games or even mundane campaigns. The order of the book also wasn't my favorite. You have an introductory chapter on how to play that left me confused on how to actually play the game, then a chapter on how to make a character, then the actual rules for how to play. As I was going through the character chapter, a number of things kind of didn't really make sense to me until I read the rules chapter. So if I'd been trying to create a character before reading the rules, I probably wouldn't have made the character I really wanted to make to play in the game. But I do feel like the order of these chapters reinforces that the Cypher system is focused on characters and stories first, that the mechanics are there to assist in crafting your adventures and stories. As far as character creation, I really like the I am an adjective, noun, who verbs. For example, I am a strong-willed spy who moves like a cat, or I'm a mad wizard who controls gravity. It's simple and allows for a lot of variety. There are 4 character type categories. These are the nouns. You can choose from warriors, adepts, explorers, and speakers. Within the book are genre examples or flavors of each type. And I really appreciate that with these types, they all have a breakdown of their abilities, but also their roles that include like their individual role, group role, and societal roles. The descriptor or adjective defines your character and offers a one-time package of extra abilities, skills, or modifications to your stat pool. I'll get into stat pools in a moment. There are 50 to choose from and options for customizing your own, so you can probably find something to work for your character concept. Your character's focus, the verb, is what makes a character unique. I like that in the Cypher system, no player should have the same focus. There are about 100 sample focus that players can pick from, or the GM can choose which will be available for that game, as not every focus is necessarily appropriate for every genre. When you choose a focus, you also choose a focus connection to one or more of your fellow PCs. Focuses have multiple tiers to level up as your characters progress. Now, the Cypher system has a lot of cooperation, not only within character creation, but also within the mechanics of the game. And as I was going through, I wish they had mention of session 0 early on, as I can't imagine creating characters individually and not as a group due to the focus connections and needing to know what the other players are choosing to play, because you don't want to have like 2 of basically the same type. Now, most of the character creation chapter is the abilities list. It's over 100 pages. It's a lot. Abilities are gained from type, flavor, if any, and focus. There are over 1,000 abilities, but luckily they have them sorted by categories like attack skills, craft, transform, social, protection, movement, and so on. And it gives you the name and tier. Basically, 1 to 2 tier characters have low tier abilities, 3 to 4 have mid, and 5 to 6 are high tiers. Your characters only go up to tier 6. This would kind of be the equivalent of a level in other D20 systems. The actual details on each ability are in the rest of the chapter, sorted alphabetically. I really appreciate that in the top corner of the spread they have abilities and then the letter of that page, so you know where you are in this chapter, since it is so massive. Before I get into reviewing the mechanics of the system, I want to take a moment to thank all of our patrons, especially Alicia. If you enjoy what we do, Patreon is the best way to directly support us. So head on over to patreon.com/rollforinitiative and check out the perks of becoming a patron. All right, let's chat about mechanics of playing the Cypher system. The Cypher system uses a D20 for most rolls, and the players make all of the rolls. The GM sets a difficulty level, you apply skills, items, other players assisting, number of other things to lower or raise the difficulty, and then you need to get that number or a number over that target number. With only the players' rolls, this does make things a little easier on the GM, but if you're like me and like rolling the dice, you won't get that in this game. There are special things that happen when you roll a 1, a 17, or 17 through 20. I like this as it gives that fun unknown consequence or bonus opportunity. I will say this system wasn't completely intuitive for me. That might be because in some ways it's similar to other D20 systems in that you have base stats and then skills and abilities, but the mechanics don't function the same. There is an example of play that's shoved in the back of the book in the GM section that I really, really wish was listed in the table of contents or actually in the chapter of how to play. And with the target numbers, you have a 1 to 10 through 10 difficulty, and then you multiply it by 3 to actually get what you need on the dice. I understand because you're using a D20, you need to have something more than 1 through 10. But it just seems to me like it adds an extra level of math that's not necessary. Just say it's a level 20 check or it's a level 10 check and have 1 to 30 be the difficulty scale. That's just me. I don't like lots of math. Now, your characters have 3 stats: might, speed, and intellect. Each stat has a pool of points that represents your character's innate ability. You spend points from this pool for certain abilities or actions. You also have an edge pool of points that you can spend to do things like increase the chance of success of a roll or to inflict more damage. These stat pools are also affected by damage your character takes. There are very clear rules for the hindrances that happen when you take damage and the level of your injury, all the way to my favorite sentence in a rule book that I've read, which is, "Dead is dead." Thanks for that one. Now, there is not a set list of skills, but they do provide a list of suggestions. This does, again, give that flexibility for a wide variety of games, but I can see it being difficult for some players or GMs not having that set list of skills, not knowing what to choose or ending up with far too specialized of skills. This is also a system where character level or tiers does not make a task more difficult. Tasks should have a flat difficulty, and they do have a pretty clear guide for what difficulty to set for tasks. And the GM shouldn't take the individual characters into account when setting those difficulties. Character progression and experience points are tied into character story arcs. There are a number of examples of different character story arcs with openings, steps, climax, and resolution. And your character can have multiple arcs. You get XP for completing steps along each story arc, also for making discoveries, and each player should get XP for completing missions. Now, this isn't a system that you get XP for killing monsters or for collecting treasure. And XP does not just total up until you level up. There are a variety of different ways to spend XP. You can spend it in session to immediately re-roll and choose the best result. But you can also spend it to gain a skill, gain a contact, home, title, or wealth. You can also spend it to advance tiers. There are advantages to advancing tiers, but leveling, but someone who chooses to spend their XP in other ways won't necessarily be left behind, as they'll have gotten kind of more mid to long-term advantages like more skills and resources. Now onto the mechanic that gives the system its name, ciphers. This is what really sets this system apart, as it allows for fantastic moments and abilities that other games might not allow until super high levels. Ciphers are single-use items. They may be physical items like a potion, a wand, an artifact, or what they call subtle ciphers, kind of a one-off innate ability that seems like it's more suited towards modern or horror settings. This is why I say I think the system feels like it supports fantasy or sci-fi best, because I think the ciphers just make more sense in those genres. These can give you the ability to teleport, heal, ease or hinder tasks. You only can have a set amount at any time, and you should get more on a regular basis, so players shouldn't hoard ciphers. In theory, they're given randomly, but GMs can also allow players to intentionally find specific ciphers. This does lead to low-level stories that are epic and fantastic, but I think it can also lead to more chaotic elements of a game, as the GM is not going to be able to plan or predict what the players will do as much as other systems. The genre chapter feels like it's there more for the GM than for the players. Each section has tips for running that genre of game, suggestions on types for the characters, foci, items, and even some additional rules and guidance on running subgenres of that games. Like in the modern section, there are optional rules if you are running a childhood adventure or a crime and espionage genre. Like, very different games, but it supports both. Now, the actual Game Master chapter is written talking directly to the reader. I like this shift in tone from here are the rules to here are the tools to run this game, since there's no specific setting for the Cypher system. You're going to be crafting your own game. And so the focus is much more on how to be a game master than how to play this game. There's some great advice in this chapter for any GM, not just for the Cypher system GMs, like how to craft a campaign, how to handle mistakes, and how to guide your players through the story. Within this section, it's clear the Cypher system supports storytelling and that the rules are the tool to tell the story, not the final word. Also, as the GM is not worried about roles, balancing encounter tables, and a rules-heavy system, it means they are able to focus on guiding the story and being the arbiter of the table. At the back of the book is a decent character sheet, and I really like the campaign design worksheet the GM can provide the players. This has spots that they can kind of let them know what rules will fit within this genre and specific game. Overall, I do like the Cypher system in theory. I've played a session of Numenera, which uses the same system at a convention, and while I love the setting, I found the rules confusing. I felt that some of the negotiating of skills and abilities to affect target numbers slowed down the games at times. And as someone who enjoys coming up with complex plans, the unexpected element of the ciphers wasn't my favorite. Plus, I could see ending up with ciphers that you never feel like you can use, or use them, you end up using them to get rid of them to make room for potential of something more useful. And this kind of happened to me in the game, which maybe is why I didn't love it as much. But I do love the concept of the character creation, and the GM section is amazing. So I'm torn. I don't think this is a system for everyone. If you're a GM who wants to be able to pick something up and run it without homebrewing, this isn't for you. Maybe you pick up Numenera. But if you want a system that focuses on story, that you can run a variety of games and genres in, then this might be a really good fit, as once you do have a good grasp of the rules, it allows for all of that variety. So what do you think? Have you played the Cypher system? What are your thoughts? And if you haven't, do you think you'd give it a try? Let's chat more in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye.